Hi all, Karthik here from Design School by WP Algorithm. So far on this channel, we've discussed ACF or Advanced Custom Fields plugin that lets us create custom fields, CPTUI that lets us create custom post types. We have discussed front-end forms and a lot more. Now imagine having ACF plus CPTUI plus front-end forms plus listings in one compact plugin that works with Elementor. Well, that's exactly what JetEngine is. So if you're willing to purchase JetEngine, or if you have already purchased it and if you're willing to learn everything about JetEngine, this is the ultimate beginner's guide to Crocoblock's Jet Engine. Let's get into it. If you don't have JetEngine, you can get it from the link in the description. Let's get into JetEngine's beginner's guide. So once you have the software installed, you can click on JetEngine and you can enable or disable few options that you need or that you don't need. By default, there are few options available. Anyway, you can choose any option and click on save. Now, like I said, JetEngine lets you create custom fields, custom post types, custom taxonomies, and a lot more. Let's start with custom fields. If you've watched the videos on custom fields, ACF and CPTUI, you'll find yourself pretty familiar. So meta boxes are nothing but field groups. In ACF plugin, you have field groups, and here in JetEngine, they just call them meta boxes. So you just click on meta box. Essentially, you're creating a field group. I'll call it recipe group because I'll be creating a post type called recipe. So custom fields are nothing but a way to add any kind of data that you define as per your wish in your WordPress. So once you enter the title, you can pick for what kind of the content that you're adding this field group to. If you pick post, you can pick the post types for which this recipe group should be applied. For now, I'll pick post, but later we can edit the meta box, so not a big deal. Or if you choose taxonomy, taxonomy is a way to organize your content. We've already created custom taxonomies, so categories, tags, and all that. So if you choose if it should appear in taxonomy, you can pick that taxonomy. If you want to add some custom data or custom fields to your user profile, you can pick user. For now, I'll just pick post and let's keep it at posts. You can also choose specific posts, so you can start typing the title of the post. You can also exclude this meta box from particular post. Now meta fields are nothing but custom fields. Let's click on new meta field, and once you click on that, you just need to enter a title for it. Since I'm going to create a recipe, I'm going to call this recipe name. So this can be a field, a tab, accordion, and endpoint. Tabs and accordions are a way to organize your content. Field is actual data. We'll just pick field. I'll also show you tab and accordion in a bit. And then you can pick the type of field that you want. Just like advanced custom fields, you have text, date, time, and all that. I'll just pick text because it is a text field. And you have few other options. You can choose to make it required. So that's one field. You can duplicate it or delete it by these icons, clicking on these icons, or you can simply add a new field. I'll just click on new meta field, and this time I just want to add the time it takes to make this recipe. So I'll just call it time, and again I'll just leave it to field, and the field type I'll just pick time because I just want users to pick the time it takes to prepare this recipe. You can also click and drag these to rearrange them. That's a neat way. Let's create other fields. So I'll now create a field called ingredients, and it should be a field, and this time let's give them a WYSIWYG. So WYSIWYG is essentially a WordPress editor, classic editor. It lets you format data not just by entering text, it lets you enter links and stuff. So I'll pick WYSIWYG for ingredients here so that users can add even photos if they wish to. And I want users to be able to pick the difficulty level, so I'll just call it difficulty. and this time I'll just change this to select. So I'll just give them few options. The first option is hard, and the label will be hard. You can also make this the default selected option. I'll clone this twice and I'll change this to medium. Now I'll change the second one to easy or beginner friendly. So even beginners can cook this recipe. I'll just copy and paste it, and I'll just make this the default selected option. So I'll just pick this option. Finally, I'll also add a gallery field to showcase how the dish is made. So this time I'll pick a gallery from here so that I can pick all the images to showcase how the recipe looks like. So once I have all my fields, you can also view the field and details by clicking on the title or minimizing that. You can see it's a text field, this is a time field, this is a WYSIWYG, this is a select with the default option beginner checked, and finally this is a gallery field with name and also the type as gallery. We'll just click on add meta boxes, so that will create that field group. So now you can update it or delete it. So it's that simple. We just created our field group that will show up on posts, but anyway we are not going to show it on posts, but rather we'll create a post type that will display our recipe. So I'll just click on post types. So this brings us to the custom post types. Similar to custom fields, you can also create custom post types with JetEngine. Just click on add new. Again, if you've watched CPTUI tutorials on the channel, which are in CPTUI playlist, you'll be familiar. Post type name, well, of course, recipes, right? And the slug will be autofilled based on what you type here, and let it be recipes. Labels, you can simply leave it as is. Labels are basically when you're adding new post from here or when you're picking a new post from here, all that. You can leave labels as is, or you can simply put all that in here. I'll just leave it as is. I'll click on advanced settings. If you want this to be public, yes, of course, because we want to show these recipes to the users. If you want to exclude it from the search, publicly queryable. So if you're using widgets such as smart post list and all, if you want this to be available within there so that you can perform a query and retrieve the data, of course we want that. And you can leave most of it as is. You can choose if this has an archive so that an archive is generated for all the recipes. Of course we want that because we want to just display a page where we will have all our written recipes, published recipes. You can choose if it should be hierarchical. I'll just leave it as is because we're not going to have parent-child relations in recipes. Anyway, if you think you should have it like pages, right? Pages and child pages, you can toggle this on. And menu position, you can choose where it should appear. So if you pick 1, it will be the first item. If you pick 2, 3, 4, I'll just show it after Elementor template or before Elementor. So it's after 7, right? So the position should be 8, I guess. So I'll just enter 8 here. So that will show up before Elementor or after Elementor. I'll just pick 8 here, and you can pick the icon for the custom post type. I'll just pick the smiley for now, and you can choose which features it supports. Also, one more important thing, capability type, always make it a post because it will have more capabilities. Pages have limited capabilities, so pages won't have revisions, and sorry, pages do have revisions, but posts have a lot of stuff, so always leave the capability type as post. And I'll remove the title, I'll remove the editor, I'll just support revisions, and I'll just support maybe author, I guess. I don't think I need anything else. And of course we need to support custom fields which are created by our meta boxes. So I'll pick custom fields, otherwise they won't show up. So once you pick that, just click on add post type. Now once you're done with the advanced settings, you also have meta fields option here. This is exactly the same as meta boxes. You can create meta boxes linked to this post type, but it's usually a good idea to put it outside so that you can reuse those field groups just like advanced custom fields. And then there's a column called admin columns, which we'll get to in a bit. So we just created that post type, and now it shows update post type or delete it. Now we created the meta boxes. You can click on the meta boxes. It will show the meta box that we created. I'll just click on edit and I'll just change this. I'll show it on recipes post type. I'll pick recipes from here, right? And I'll hit update. Now we'll get all these fields only on the recipes post type that we just created. That's neat. So we just created a custom post type and we added custom fields. I want to modify our custom post type a bit. I forgot to add the slug, and I'll just click on advanced settings, and under here we'll add featured image, we'll add title, right? And I'll update the post type. Also I'll just click on the meta boxes. I'll edit our recipes meta box. We don't need recipe name because I added title in the post type itself. So I'll update this meta box, right? Rest all I'll just leave it as is, and there you have it. Now if I click on add new, you can set a featured image for it. Of course we do need a featured image, right? We want to show off our recipe, and that's also good for our custom grid. So let's call it Chinese Manchurian or whatever you want. Time, so when I click on time, you can see the hours and minutes picker. I'll just pick 13 minutes. Ingredients, I'll add random ingredients. So that will be my ingredients, and I can pick the beginner level. So difficulty is beginner because anyone can make it. I'll also choose a gallery to showcase my recipes. Of course these are not recipe galleries, but I'll just use them because they're handy. I can also pick the author. Since I just have one user on this site, I cannot pick anyone else, but if you have multiple users, you can pick who wrote that. And I'll just hit publish, and that will basically publish our. And speaking of the position, right, I think it takes into account all these items into the position category as well. So under advanced settings, if you want to change the position, just play with the numbers. So if I just add 18, I'll update the post type, and you can change the permalink by clicking on edit. You have the status which you can change from public, private, pending or draft. You can also change the visibility from public to private or whatever. You can move it or update. And this is the field group that we created for the recipes post type, and I've just entered some of the data. I also need a featured image and title, right? And what about organizing these custom post types? Well, for that you can also create the custom taxonomies. Taxonomies are a way to organize your data, and WordPress defines categories and taxonomies to organize your posts. Well, for your custom post types such as these recipes, you can create your own taxonomy so that you can play by your own rules. Now some names are not accepted. If you use the taxonomy name type and try to create the taxonomy, it won't be created, maybe for, I don't know, for few purposes. So I'll change this to kind, and post type, I'll just attach it to our recipes post type. Advanced settings, you can almost leave everything as is. I just want this to be hierarchical so that you can have parent child relationships in the taxonomy, right? So within wedge you can have Chinese, and within non-veg you can have Thai and stuff like that. And if you want to add specific meta fields for the taxonomy itself, you can also pick this, but I'll just settle with the default ones. So now if I go to recipes, you find the taxonomy. If I click on kind again, it has the basic things that usually has. So let's create two: veg, or you can call it vegan parent category. We don't have a parent category for this, and non-veg. So this will be non-veg. So within veg we can create a child category. Similarly with non-veg you can create another child category, just like that. So I can pick the parent category from here, and for this the parent category is non-veg. I'll just click on add. Just like you'd find the categories and stuff, you have veg, non-veg, and all that stuff. Okay, so those are taxonomies. These are also a great way to organize data. So we created post types, custom fields to have data for the particular post types. We customized the way data should appear, and then we created custom taxonomies to organize this. I'll click on recipes. Now we entered data for this, and if I click on edit, it takes us to this interface where all of this plays out. But if I visit the post, or if I visit the post type called recipes, you'll find something strange. All of the data that we mentioned here will not be reflected because we didn't specify a design for our post type. Similarly, the same thing for taxonomy. Sometimes you need to click on the settings of each of the taxonomy, and if something is not being shown, you can adjust these. And sometimes selecting the rewrite is important, right? So if you don't select it, you might throw up an error. So that's how it works. And within recipes, like I said, the taxonomies, we didn't specify how the taxonomies template should look like, even if we add something to the taxonomy. So if I go to the URL, or if I click on view, you'll see there's nothing within here because we didn't specify the template when nothing is found, and we didn't specify a template for the taxonomy when there's actually a recipe within that. So that design part has to be done by using either Elementor Pro or my favorite, JetThemeCore. This is the reason why I asked you to make sure that JetThemeCore plugin, which is also by Crocoblock, works really well with all your themes. If it doesn't work, you can try out the fixes I listed out in the Jet Engine or Jet plugins playlist. Now, once you fix the issue, you need to design the post with the necessary dynamic data so that you can display it the way you want in the graphical interface. So once you have the Jet theme core installed, it's basically your Elementor Pro's theme builder but made by Crocoblock. Click on Jet plugins, click on theme builder, and we actually need to build a single post template, and this is for our recipe. So I'll just call it recipe design. We created the post itself, we also entered the data, but we didn't specify how the design or how that data should be displayed. That's what we're going to do with JetThemeCore. This is really important. Even though you've created the post type with JetEngine, there is no real way that your theme will understand how to display it. The same thing with your custom taxonomy. So in order to show all of that, you need to design theme templates using either JetThemeCore or by using Elementor Pro. On this side, I'm using JetThemeCore. I'll be doing it with JetThemeCore because it works really well with the JetEngine plugin. So I'll just click on create template. That will take us to the Elementor interface where we'll design a template for our recipe post type. Now you can start creating the sections and the widgets that you need to use in the single post template are provided by JetEngine, and they're basically called listing elements. So at the bottom of the page, you'll find these listing elements. So dynamic field will pull up fields, dynamic image, of course, the image, and so on, right? Based on the kind of field that you have, you can use different things to pull up different kinds of data. Now you can start from the scratch, or you can click this magic button, and I'll actually use a page template so that it becomes easy for me. So I'll start by picking a page template for our recipe site, something like this. I'll just click on insert, and that will insert the design. Of course, we'll remove all the widgets and we'll put our dynamic widgets in there. That's how you have to design your template, right? I'll wait till the template is inserted. Before we get started, we want to have the preview of the elements. So I just click on the settings cog. This is a single post type design, and we'll change the condition to singular, and it should be post type, and the post type is recipes. That's great. And we also want to preview the data, and the recipe was Chinese Manchurian, right? So I'll just pick that. I'll update, reload the page. Now when you drag the widgets, you'll clearly see the preview in action, and that's what we really want, because as I drag the dynamic widgets, I want to see how those data look like, right? Only then I'll be able to design. So I'll scroll down to the bottom. So the first field, I'll just drag the dynamic field, and just like that, you can see the title in action. Now you can style it like any other Elementor field. You can align it onto the center. You can change the color. You can also change the typography. I'll make it bigger, right? Neat. Now that's title. Next, I want to show up the time it takes to make this recipe in minutes, right? In hours. And also the difficulty level after the title. So I'll drag in an inner section, and to the first, I'll again go back to my dynamic widgets where I need to pull the data that I need. It's usually the type of the data that you want to pick. Dynamic meta, if you associate the metadata with the post itself, you can use this widget. Anyway, if it doesn't work, if the dynamic terms, or if this doesn't work, just drag in your dynamic field. Once you drag in the dynamic field, it will pull the title, and you can see all the available types for it. So if you pick post status, it will show the post status. So this is not the source. We want to change the source from post data to metadata, because we added the metadata, right? And the meta field is this time. And you can also pick an icon. So I'll pick a clock for it, and you can also customize the field output and filter field output. We'll get to that in a bit. So if you want to display the data in a particular format, if the standard format is not working, that's when you'll use filter field output. We'll get to that in a bit. So this is time in hours, right? So once I pick customize field output, it'll enter a string, or they call it macro. So you can enter anything before that or after that. So I'll say hours. So that's pretty self-explanatory. If you just have minutes, well, you can change this format in the settings and just have minutes over here, but I'll just put hours here, have an icon, and that's the meta field. Now you can obviously style this the way you want. Again, we'll align it onto the center, and we'll give it a green color, or you can give it a black color, whatever color you want. I'll remove this column, and I'll duplicate the column, and I'll just change the key. So I'll right click this, I'll duplicate it, I'll click on this dynamic field again, I'll align it onto the left, so that way you have both of them side by side. But this time I'll change this dynamic data. Again, go to content, and this is also metadata that we're trying to pull, but it's not time, but it's difficulty level, right? And we need to change few other things. We don't need ours here, we want something before this. So customize field output, even the icon we have to change difficulty. I'll put this. You can put any icon or you can upload your own SVG over here. You can even have a fallback, but usually this data is mandatory, so we don't necessarily need a fallback. And percentage is the value that will be dynamically coming from the user input, but before that we want to customize it, so I'll add difficulty before that, just like that. So we have two data, so we have title, we have the time it takes, and also the difficulty level. And then what else do we have? We have ingredients. We also need to pull it in a similar fashion. Again, you need to drag in the dynamic field widget, click and drag it right below this, align it onto the center, and the content should be from the metadata. If you create options, you can pick from the options, but anyway we'll be just limited with the metadata, and we just want to list out the ingredients like that, which is neat. You can also change the alignment within. We'll also style this. Let's also make this a bit bigger and bolder. So something of that sort. Anyway, design is all up to you. Pulling the data is important. So those are the ingredients required. You can have a heading before this. It's normal text field, so you don't need to filter it to format it the way you want. You can also customize it. So I can put my pre-text over there, right? Ingredients like that, just like that, it works, not a problem. Or you can also drag in a heading widget which you want. Anyway, I'm just showing it. So we are done with ingredients. The next data that we need to pull is the gallery. Now again, you might be wondering, what is the field required to show the gallery? You might think it's an image, but it's not. It's the same dynamic field. I'll just drag this dynamic field and it's metadata. And if I choose gallery from the option, you don't see the gallery, right? We must have done something wrong, but no. So some special data other than text or this requires special formatting, and that's where you need to filter field output. So you need to click on filter field output. Since it's a gallery, you need to choose the appropriate over here. So you can either choose images gallery slider or grid. Let's choose slider. So it creates a slider of images from the gallery that we uploaded, just like that. Or if you want a grid, you can simply choose that to be a grid based on your need. So that's how you use these dynamic data, right? So based on the fields that you have, you'll either pick dynamic field or dynamic image, dynamic link. If you want to add a link to something, usually this comes handy in archive pages where you want to link that to a particular thing, but either way. Also, if you have a repeater widget, you can use that. But anyway, mostly while creating a single post or single page template, you'll be using the first three or first four grids. And while creating the listing grid, which is essentially a loop, I'll show that in a bit. Also, this title element can be formatted, so you can customize field output, and you can simply type a recipe here so that you don't have to enter recipe for the title of each and every recipe post type. It will automatically be added here. So we created the custom taxonomy, right? Let's pick the taxonomy. So I'll maybe pick veg and Thai. Let's also pick these three. Of course, it's not related to this, but I just want to show you how the dynamic terms works. So I'll update. The dynamic field is to pull all kinds of data, and dynamic image, well, to pick anything that contains image in it, right? That comes from either the metadata, featured image, and stuff like that. basically all the things related to the post. Now dynamic meta will pull your metadata. We just added 3 taxonomies: veg, Thai and Indian. I think we need to refresh this page. It's not dynamic meta, it's dynamic terms. So terms are basically like your custom taxonomy. When I drag it, nothing actually seems to happen. Update this. I'll refresh this page because we just added 3 taxonomies to this post, which is Chinese Manchurian. I'll reload this Elementor interface. Once the interface reloads, I can click on this widget of dynamic terms. Now I can pick the custom taxonomy, which is kind, and you can see all 3 of them are listed there. You can have any delimiter you want, anything. You can also link them to their archives, right? And you can put anything before and after. You can also hide if it's empty on, but I think that would be enough. Let's also add an icon, maybe something of that sort, right? That way the user knows. You can also style the icon the way you want of dynamic widgets, right? Now this is for the single post template. That's great. Now let's create, or let's actually view this post. I'll refresh this. Now if we view the post on the front end, which is how the user would view this recipe, it looks something like this in the URL. So it's our website.com recipes and the post name. Then once the design loads, so if I view the page on the front end, this is our design, right? So it has the title, the terms, the dynamic terms, then we have the dynamic metadata pulled using the widgets, and then we have the ingredients and gallery. Of course, feel free to add any field. You can add a text editor field, you can add a text area field, right? Feel free to add, or you can add a video field, but this is how it works. So we just made our custom post type, designed it using JetThemeCore. Now I missed out on one more thing. So when you click on post types, and when you try to edit, or while you're trying to create the post type itself, there's something called admin column. Admin column is basically what you see while viewing the posts. So if we view the post, normal post type, you see this data, right? Author, categories, tags. So this data can totally be customized using JetEngine. That's what admin column really means. So you just need to show all the meta fields. So title, again I'll use the meta boxes as a reference because we're essentially showing the data of the meta boxes. I'll just click on edit, and this is time, right? So I'll show time in the admin column. You can also make it sortable, right? If it's alphabetical or numerical, you can also make it sortable. And let's add, time is done. Now let's add difficulty, right? Let's add this to admin column as well. So the second admin column for this post type recipe is difficulty. I'll make capital D, difficulty, and you can also set the column order, but I think everything else works great. You can make it sortable so that you can view from high to low, high to medium difficulty, or low to medium difficulty, or whatever. And what else have we got? Those are only the 2 things that we can show up in admin column. And finally we want to also show up the term, right? So the term is kind. So we need to put the taxonomy term, and it's kind, the slug for it, is kind, right? So we'll put that in here. I'll just update post type. Now if we go to recipes and view any of the recipes added, just like that, you have the admin columns that we added. Author and date are obviously there. Time is there. We didn't make it sortable. Difficulty level, you can see it's being sorted. If you add multiple posts, you can sort it the way you want. So this is how you build the whole admin column using JetEngine. So that is admin column in JetEngine. So we've discussed post types, meta boxes, and within post types you have their own meta boxes, but usually it's a good idea to use the meta boxes because they're separate from the post type and they can be reused with any post type. And then you have relations and option pages forms, which we'll discuss in later videos. Since this is a beginner's guide, we'll just keep things simple. Now there's one more thing that I want to discuss in this video, which is listings. Well, listings is just a fancy name to say post grid or post loop. So in here you just design a loop, and then using the listing grid you just show the grid of posts. Since we want to show all of our recipes, let's design a listing grid. So the source is actually post and the post types are recipes, and you can select between Gutenberg interface and Elementor. I'll choose Elementor, of course. And listing name, I'll call it, well, recipe collection or recipe blog, whatever you want to call it. I'll call it recipe blog. I think that looks neat. So I'll just click on create listing item. Essentially this is a post loop. So once you're done creating the post loop, you'll then use the same loop to design an archive page. That's a neat way. I'll just make it simple. So I'll use, since this is a loop, you again need to use listing item. Actually this is the name where it came from. So listing item is used to design a list item. Of course you can design the custom post type itself using listing item, but bear in mind that these are just dynamic fields. Now I'll just drag in the name of the recipe. I'll just drag that in, and I think it's better to copy from the custom post type that we already designed. So I'll go to dashboard. I'll just copy and paste the dynamic widgets that we want. Of course, you can drag each and every widget and customize it the way you want for this recipe. But I'll just go to my theme builder template, theme parts template. I'll just click on edit with Elementor. I don't have Elementor Pro on this website, so all of the things that I'm designing are actually by using the Crocoblock Jet ThemeCore plugin, which works really well with JetEngine without any problem. I recommend you use JetThemeCore while working with JetEngine because they're both by the same developer. So let's copy this and I'll paste this into our loop. I'll delete this now. I'll paste this into our loop, and maybe I'll just copy this inner section as well. And I'll paste the inner section. Something of that sort. And finally we'll drag the dynamic image widget, which is actually the featured image of the recipe or the recipe image. I'll just put it there. I'll align it onto the center. Image size, let's customize it a bit. I think that looks better. You can also link the image to any of the fields, but I'll just leave it as is. You can also choose a fallback image if there is no such image in here, but usually since these are all mandatory fields, you'll have an image, so I don't have to worry much about that. I'll hit publish. Now we have published a recipe blog design. Actually this is recipe blog loop, since this is a single item. Now let's design the archive for it. We design single post type an archive is essentially a listing or collection of all these. So just like we have blog for all the posts, we need to view all the recipes on the same page, right? So we'll go to JetEngine, again go to JetThemeCore's theme builder. Let's design an archive. We'll click on archive, click on add new, recipe collections. Let's call it recipe collections. And I'll just click on create template. Now this loop will be used in the archive design. Loop is essentially how each of the item should appear in the archive collection. So once you're in the archive page, you need to click on the conditions. It's archive, an archive of essentially post type archives, and the post types are recipes, right? You can also do the same for taxonomies, and the post types are essentially again recipes. So that's publish. Okay, now there's a widget called listing grid. So this is individual listing item, and then this is listing grid. So if I just drag this in, and we have to select the loop. Since we are designing recipes, I'll just select recipes blog loop, and just like that the recipes appear. Since I just have one recipe, it's just showing one grid item, I'll duplicate it and I'll have like 5 to 6 recipes or 8 or 9 recipes. Then you can view the grid in action. I just used a duplicate plugin to clone the posts. So if you have multiple posts, this is the grid that you'll get. Let's drag a heading widget above this. I'll call it my recipes or all recipes. So it's heading widget. Let's drag this above. Just like that, we designed an archive page for our recipes. Isn't it cool? So once you design the blog, and if you visit the blog, right, so your website.com/the post types. So for usual post types, it's your website.com/blog or any page that you create. But recipes will be the archive generated by WordPress. And here are all our recipes. Of course, these are in no way related to food, but and you have your pagination, you have your header and footer. So that's how it works, right? We'll be discussing more about archive pages, but essentially this is what JetEngine does. So JetEngine lets you add meta boxes, which are basically custom fields, taxonomies, ways to organize your content, and you can also design archive pages for taxonomies using the same listing grid thing. So listing grid is essentially, or listing item is essentially a custom post loop. This is a custom post type. We'll be talking about relations, options, and forms in later videos, but this is how JetEngine works in a nutshell. So it lets you create custom post types, custom fields, custom taxonomies, but there's a lot more to JetEngine than just creating these custom post types and things like that. Of course, I recommend you to design these using JetThemeCore because it'll work well, because both of them are by same developer. You can also get that from the link in the description. I think this will clear out a lot of things. So we have also done admin columns, and this is the beginner's guide to JetEngine. Stay tuned for more videos on JetEngine. I'll be teaching a lot of JetEngine stuff. So this is the basic thing. Let me know what you guys think about JetEngine. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.